Okay, let's see if we can figure out how to determine a net ionic equation from a double displacement reaction. These reactions are sometimes also referred to as metathesis reactions. In these kinds of reactions, you start out with two soluble substances, things that will dissolve in water, in this case some mercury nitrate and some sodium iodide. To determine what the possible products are going to be, you're going to swap the first two elements, in this case the mercury and the sodium. That determines what your possible products are going to be. The next thing you need to look at is whether or not the substances that you formed on the product side remain soluble. That is, do they stay dissolved? If everything on the product side stays dissolved, then no chemical reaction has occurred, because remember, dissolving in the formation of a solution is a physical change. So in order to have a chemical reaction, one of the products must be something that is insoluble in water. In this case, that's the mercury iodide. You can tell this by looking at a chart of solubilities or memorizing some of the solubility rules, which unfortunately you'll have to do if you are in AP chemistry. And you'll know that, for example, nitrates are always soluble and mercury iodide is the precipitate. Always figure out what the precipitate's going to be before you go ahead and balance the equation, because there's no sense in balancing the equation if it isn't a chemical reaction. Okay, so the next step is to try to figure out what's the net ionic equation. To do this, we're going to write out all of the substances that will dissociate and form into ions when they dissolve in water. On the reactant side, that's everything that's there. On the product side, only sodium and nitrate will dissolve in water, and again, the mercury iodide remains as a solid compound. The next thing we want to do is cross out anything that appears unchanged on the left and right side of the equation, just like in algebra. So in this case, we have some sodium and some nitrate that basically don't do a thing here. They just simply watch the reaction happen. These are called spectator ions. Finally, to get the net ionic equation, you simply write down the elements on the reactant side which are involved in the chemical reaction. That's the mercury and the iodide. They come together to form the mercury iodide. You can indicate that it's a precipitate by putting a little arrow down if you like. Now the things that are on the product side, again, are insoluble, and the things that are on the reactant side are soluble. After a while, once you get good at these, you'll be able to recognize and spot the ions that will remain soluble and the things that will remain insoluble when they come together. And usually you don't have to write out the whole complete ionic equation to get at your final answer. Hopefully this helps you to figure out where the net ionic equations come from.